Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. Today I'm going to be doing a bit of a deep dive and investigate the claims that have been made that Drag Race is fake. On my channel I've previously talked about things like production secrets and behind the scenes tea, and I'll be using all of that to illustrate my points. I'll be discussing things like shady editing, pre-planned winners and losers, as well as some weird production secrets among other things. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Please also note that because we'll be talking about different queens and their time on Drag Race, there is a spoiler alert in place for this video. Is Drag Race scripted? One of the things that many fans have wondered for years is whether Drag Race is scripted and if the contestants or the judges are told what to say. And the answer is perhaps a bit more complicated than you might think. For example, it has been alleged in the past that the judges do get scripted lines fed to them through an earpiece during the runways, and this has since been confirmed. For example, Jeffrey Boyer Chapman, who was a judge on Canada's Drag Race Season 1, said that some of the comments he made to the contestants were fed to him through an earpiece and he was told to say them. And Season 1 contestant Tammy Brown has previously said that during her tense disagreement with RuPaul at the reunion episode, RuPaul's comebacks were fed to him through an earpiece. So it appears as though the judges might be scripted to a degree, but I think that's probably to be expected. And I think it's pretty obvious that a lot of the funny comments that they make during the runways are given to them. But what's more interesting, I think, is whether the contestants themselves are scripted. I think it's clear that certain topics that come up during the episodes are prompted by the producers because they don't seem like normal topics that you would just casually bring up in conversation. Drag Race often discusses difficult issues, especially things that concern the LGBT+ community, such as coming out, discrimination and intolerance. And I think most of us can understand and appreciate that the contestants are told to talk about these topics because it's important to bring more attention to these subjects, and Drag Race is a great platform to reach a wide audience. But just as to how forced and genuine these conversations are is probably down to interpretation. For example, Season 6 contestant Kelly Mantle once joked in an interview that during episode 1 she was stressed trying to get her makeup done, and the producers forced her to have a conversation with Vivacious about her childhood, but Kelly didn't have enough time or headspace to actually take the conversation seriously.
Kelly, the producer's like, ask Vivacious what her childhood was like growing up in Jamaica. And I'm all like, I don't have time. I'm trying to put my makeup on. I'm like, Vivacious, what was your childhood like? She's like, oh, mama, it was terrible. They tried to drown me in the ocean. I'm like, oh my God, that's so awful, you know?
And similarly, when I interviewed Dave Lara, who was Jinx Monsoon's military veteran during the Makeover Challenge in Season 5, I asked Dave if Drag Race is scripted, and he said that certain topics are fed to you by producers, but the rest of it is all natural. So it appears as though certain elements of the show are scripted, which is to be expected, but what the contestants actually say is up to them. I'd just like to take a moment to say thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Adam and Eve. And if you want to spice up your love life either for you and your partner or just for yourself, Adam and Eve have just the right products for you. And what's better is that you can use the code DRAGT and you'll get 50% off one item plus free shipping in the US and Canada. Another reason I really like this company is because they have been pioneers in the industry. The company actually started back in 1971, and the idea was to sell condoms by mail because at the time you had to go to the doctor or health clinic to get them. And the company was involved in a lengthy legal battle with prosecutors over privacy and freedom of speech. Eventually the case went to the Supreme Court and the government backed down. So it's companies like Adam and Eve who helped make change in society. Adam and Eve is also great because they have 24/7 customer service, a 90-day no-hassle returns policy, they offer discreet shipping, and 20% of their profit goes to help fight the spread of HIV around the world. So make sure you check out Adam and Eve and use the code DRAGT to get 50% off one item and free shipping in the US and Canada. Thanks again to Adam and Eve for sponsoring today's video. And now let's get back to some more juicy Drag Race gossip. Shady editing. When it comes to reality TV, I think most people know that the shows are highly edited, and as Tatiana would say, what you see isn't always the truth. However, what people may not know is the extent to which Drag Race is edited and how that can change your perception of not only the show, but the contestants themselves. Drag Race is usually filmed over 4 to 8 weeks and then split into roughly 12 episodes. That means that each episode takes around 2 to 3 days to film, even though on the show they make out like each episode happens on a separate week. But in reality, each episode only takes a few days to film, and this is split up between filming the confessionals, the mini challenges, the maxi challenges, runways and untucked, as well as any additional shots that they might need. And this means that the editors have days worth of footage that they need to condense down into one episode, which is around 40 to 60 minutes long, and this is where editing comes into play. And although editing is essential to make the show succinct and enjoyable, it also means that a lot of context gets left out, either by necessity, but also out of choice to try and push a certain narrative. For example, one of the things that has become a well-known phrase on Drag Race is the so-called villain edit. This is when a particular contestant is edited to look like a villain by only showing the bad things that they say and none of the good things. Famous examples of the so-called Drag Race villains include Fifi O'Hara, the Vixen, and Roxy Andrews. And it's always difficult to say whether these contestants really deserved their villain status or whether they were edited to look that way. So let's look at a few examples. Jeremy Carey, formerly known as Fifi O'Hara, competed on Season 4 and also All Stars 2. On Season 4, Jeremy was shown to have lots of drama with several contestants such as Willem and Sharon Needles. And this reputation of being a villain was even brought up by other contestants such as Chad Michaels at the Season 4 reunion, who criticised Jeremy's behaviour on the show. Jeremy seemed to be aware of this villain status, and he even mentioned this during his entrance for All Stars 2.
I'm Fifi O'Hara, and I'm playing a villain. Get it?
However, according to Jeremy, there was a lot of shady editing that made him look much worse than he actually was. For example, if we take a look at this clip from Season 4, during the episode 6 lip sync between Milan and Jiggly Caliente, when Milan takes her wig off, it cuts to a shot of Jeremy saying, quote, "That's clearly a dude."
Milan, girl, that's clearly a dude.
However, if we spin on to episode 10, which was the makeover challenge called DILFs, Dads I'd Like to Frock, during the main stage practice with Jeremy's makeover partner, Jeremy comments on his partner and says, quote, "That's clearly a dude."
No, that's clearly a dude.
This is the exact same snippet that was used during the Milan vs Jiggly lip sync, which makes you question when Jeremy actually said this line and who he was referring to, and whether it was taken out of context to make Jeremy look more shady than he was. In the earlier seasons, this type of editing was easier to see, but Drag Race has definitely become smarter about this, and they now make the contestants wear the exact same thing when they film their confessionals, so you can't tell when the footage is taken from. In the earlier seasons, they didn't make the contestants wear the same clothes for the confessionals, which made it obvious when they had done the so-called Frankenstein editing. This is evidenced by this clip of Shangela from Season 3, where she is clearly wearing different clothes in her confessionals, and they have tried to mash together two different parts of a sentence. And going back to Jeremy, apparently during All Stars 2, in the infamous moment on episode 5 where the eliminated queens appeared in the mirror in the workroom, the edit made it look like Jeremy had been bad-mouthing Alyssa Edwards the whole time, and that Alyssa was annoyed at Jeremy when she came back into the room. However, according to Jeremy, when Alyssa came back into the room, the other remaining contestants actually defended Jeremy to Alyssa and agreed with what Jeremy had been saying. However, this footage appears to have been cut out, which makes it look like Jeremy was the only one being critical of Alyssa, even though this apparently isn't true. And this further pushed the narrative that Jeremy and Alyssa hated each other. This narrative perfectly set up the rest of the episode because Alyssa won that week's episode and had the power to send home Jeremy, which she did, but that all seems a little bit too convenient. Another example of villain editing is the Vixen. The Vixen appeared on Season 10 and had drama with several contestants such as Aquaria and Eureka. And the general narrative surrounding the Vixen was that she was combative and confrontational. And this was highlighted by her entrance line. However, according to the Vixen, the producers asked her to film her entrance several times, and the line that she said, which was, "I'm just here to fight," was a quote from the TV show Bad Girls Club and was an inside joke between the Vixen and her friends. The Vixen said that the way that she said her entrance line came off more combative than she intended because she was so nervous due to the fact that she had to refilm her entrance several times. And the Vixen also said that the producers might have done this on purpose to push the narrative from the start that the Vixen is a combative queen. The other ways that the editors can make a moment feel shadier than it is by the use of the shade sound effects. There's a great video on the Top RPDR Videos channel, which I'll link to in the description, that documents how many times the shade noise is used for Latrice during All Stars 4.
We were hilarious. I started off slow.
Well.
And you can see how it makes the moment seem more shady than it actually was. So there were just a few ways that Drag Race may appear fake because of the inconsistent and sometimes shady editing choices, but I think this is pretty normal for most reality TV shows. Manipulating storylines. One of the things that have made Drag Race so successful over the years is that you really get to know the contestants and you feel like you are with them on this crazy journey throughout the competition. And this is of course no accident and is carefully planned by the producers to make the show more enjoyable for the audience. And this is further evidenced by the fact that the people that work with the queens for their confessionals are called story producers. And the storytelling can really make a difference when it comes to how a contestant is perceived in the competition, but also where that contestant ranks in the competition. Let's take a look at a few examples. Season 4 was a pretty dramatic season, and the feud between Sharon Needles and Jeremy Carey, or Fifi O'Hara as he was known back then, was the first big rivalry on the show. And their epic fight in episode 4, where Jeremy said, "Go back to Party City," has gone down in Drag Race history. So it seemed a little coincidental that a few episodes later in episode 7, which was called Frenemies, the queens were partnered up with their biggest enemy in the competition and Sharon was partnered with Jeremy. Sharon and Jeremy landed in the bottom that week and had to lip sync for their lives, which many people felt was orchestrated by the producers because they wanted an ultimate showdown between the two biggest enemies on the season. However, Willem was actually called forward and disqualified from the competition because she had apparently broken the rules, which meant that neither Sharon nor Jeremy were actually eliminated that episode. I think it's pretty obvious that production would have known about Willem's rule breaking before the lip sync, but they decided to eliminate Willem after the lip sync to increase drama and intensify the storyline between Sharon and Jeremy. In an interview, Jeremy implied as though he and Sharon had spoken and agreed to lean into their feud because they knew that it would make good TV and it would make it more likely for them both to get to the finale. And as a different example, in season 13, Candy Muse was portrayed as quite an outspoken queen throughout the season and had drama with other contestants including Tamisha Iman. The tension came to a head in Untucked of episode 5 where Candy and Tamisha had a big argument. And then, in the very next episode, both Candy and Tamisha coincidentally landed in the bottom and had to lip sync against each other, with Candy ultimately winning and sending Tamisha home. It has been suggested by many people online that Tamisha should not have been in the bottom that episode, but it made for better TV entertainment for the lip sync to be between Candy and Tamisha because they had had a beef with each other the episode before. Also, later in the season, Candy was saved from elimination when she landed in the bottom against Simone, who was a favourite to win, so it seemed likely that Candy would be going home. Candy was told to sashay away, but then RuPaul stopped her and said that it was a double shantay, and Candy was saved and then eventually made it to the top 4. And I don't want to invalidate Candy or say that she didn't deserve her spot in the top 4, because she's a very talented queen and she definitely deserved her place in the competition. But I think most people would agree that Candy was one of the most entertaining members of season 13, and if she left there wouldn't have been as much drama. So it's probably fair to say that the producers wanted to keep her in the competition for as long as possible, and this may explain the outcome of certain episodes. And production has even been accused of pushing certain queens to be the winners too. For example, I've spoken about this in a previous video, but in season 5, Jinx Monsoon became an early fan favourite and eventually went on to win the season. However, fellow Season 5 competitor Detox has previously said that she was approached by a producer and asked if she could help Jinx with her makeup, and Detox said no. And then, when Jinx and Detox fell in the bottom together in episode 11, Detox said that the lip sync song was changed at the last minute and swapped to Malambo No. 1, which Jinx had apparently been singing a lot backstage, and the producers knew that this was Jinx's preferred song because it fit into her campy style. And Detox said that she thinks the producers deliberately swapped the song to give Jinx an advantage in the lip sync to stay in the competition. So those were just a few examples of when the storylines of certain queens can be manipulated to fit a certain narrative that the producers think will make for better TV. And although it's difficult to prove whether these claims of storyline manipulation are actually true or not, if they are, it would certainly be another reason why some people think that Drag Race is fake. Pre-planned winners and losers. One of the more shocking rumours that has been said about Drag Race is that the winners are pre-chosen, and also that the eliminations are pre-planned before the lip sync. Obviously none of this has been confirmed, but here are a few examples that people have used. On season 4, Jiggly Caliente became a fan favourite, but was often criticised by the judges for not being as polished as some of the other queens. There is an internet rumour that says that Jiggly's elimination was pre-planned even before the lip sync. In episode 7, which was the Dragazines episode, Jiggly received negative critiques and landed in the bottom. During Untucked, Jiggly can be seen crying, and it is made to look like the reason she is crying is because she's worried about going home. However, it has been rumoured that Jiggly was actually crying because she had received a checkout letter from the hotel on the day of the runway before the lip sync had even been filmed. This would imply as though the producers knew that Jiggly was going home and had told the hotel to check her out of her room. Apparently Jiggly even mentioned the letter in Untucked and can be seen holding what looks like a piece of paper, but the mention of the letter was edited out. And a few other queens have apparently made similar claims during the earlier seasons, but this hasn't happened in the later seasons. On the flip side of that, it has also been suggested that the winners of the show are also pre-chosen by production. As we all know, and I've talked about this several times in my videos, each of the finalists has to film themselves winning, and then in the final edit they only use the footage of the queen that actually won. But some people have said that the winner is already chosen before the finale, and that the finale is manipulated in order to favour a particular queen. And although there is no definite proof of this, the fact that a tie between Bianca Del Rio and Adore Delano was filmed at the season 6 finale must mean that Courtney Act didn't really stand a chance of winning, and this was planned by production. Similarly, Willem has said on her podcast Race Chaser that at the season 4 finale, when Jeremy was filming his winning speech, a piece of jewellery fell off his outfit, and when he bent down to pick it up, the crown also fell off. And apparently Jeremy then asked if he could refilm his speech because of the mistake, but the producers told him that it didn't matter, so it was clear that Jeremy's footage was never going to be used anyway because he didn't win, which further feeds into the idea that the winners are pre-chosen. And Willem has also said in the past that Sharon was allowed to redo her entrance because her hat fell off the first time that she walked in. But no one else was allowed to redo their entrance, so Willem claimed that production favoured Sharon. And some other contestants have also implied as though winners are pre-chosen. For example, in season 3, Mariah Paris Balenciaga was eliminated in episode 6 after the Snatch game. But apparently, Mariah's mirror message was edited. The part that we saw said, "mug 4 days", but then in the closer shot you can see that there is something else written which was blurred out during the wider shot. Apparently this part said, "Congratulations Raja", implying that Mariah felt that Raja had already been chosen to win. And I don't know if this is true or not, but the fact that the producers decided to edit this mirror message out just creates more suspicion than if they had just left it as it was. So although we'll never know whether the winners or losers of Drag Race are pre-chosen, you can see why these rumours would lead people to think that Drag Race is fake. Production secrets. We all know that a lot goes into making a TV show like Drag Race, so it should come as no surprise that the production team have certain tricks and secrets that they use in order to make the show more entertaining. But this does mean that some moments are not as real as you might think. For example, in All Stars 4, Episode 6, the eliminated queens came back to the competition in a Lollapalooza lip-sync smackdown where they had the opportunity to return to the competition and knock out one of the remaining queens. The way they chose the song was that the pit crew brought out briefcases, and each briefcase had the name of a different song inside it, so that way the queens wouldn't know which song they were lip-syncing to. However, Naomi Smalls once confirmed that all the briefcases actually contain the same song, so the queen is going to get the same song regardless of which briefcase they actually pick.
All those suitcases are filled with the exact same thing. I'm like, oh god. I looked down, I saw them putting adrenaline in each suitcase.
And this clearly shows that production wants to control which queens get which songs. And this should probably come as no surprise because Trinity the Tuck lip-synced against Jasmine Masters to the song Peanut Butter, which gave Trinity the opportunity to do her signature butt shake, and this seemed a bit coincidental. And also, Mo Hart and Latrice Royale were the final pair to lip-sync, and their song was Sissy That Walk, which is arguably the most famous RuPaul song, and works the best as a final and most dramatic lip-sync song, so it would seem like this was done on purpose. And on a similar note, it has been rumoured that the wheel used at the finales to select which queens lip-sync against each other is actually motorised, so production can control where it lands. And although I couldn't find any evidence of this, it does sound like it could be true. For example, in All Stars 7, there was this narrative throughout the season that Monet X Change and Trinity the Tuck had this sort of rivalry but also camaraderie because they both won All Stars 4 and were the first twinners of the franchise. So it did seem very coincidental that in the final lip-sync Lollapalooza Smackdown in Episode 7, that Monet and Trinity were paired in the lip-sync because of the wheel. And speaking of Monet and Trinity's win in All Stars 4, there is a rumour that at the last minute, the producers decided on a double crowning for All Stars 4. If we look at the final edit of when they announced the winners, you'll notice that the camera cuts away from RuPaul when she says that it's a double win, and it sounds a bit like a voiceover that was added in.
Race Hall of Fame is, for the first time in All Stars history, you are both winners, baby.
And you also never see both Trinity and Monet on stage together with the crown and scepter, and it cuts to a split shot of them. But from the editing, I think it's clear that the double crowning was not originally planned for whatever reason, and they tried hard to cover this up, which is why a lot of people question how real and authentic Drag Race is. So there you go, there was a bit of a deep dive into whether or not Drag Race is fake, and the reasons why some people think that the show is not as authentic as it would appear. Obviously it's up to you to make your own decision on this, but looking at all the evidence, it's clear that Drag Race is a highly produced show, and you can't always believe everything you see. But as to whether Drag Race is fake, or if it's simply manipulated for maximum entertainment value, is open to interpretation. So what do you think? Do you think that Drag Race is fake? Or do you think that a certain amount of producer manipulation is needed in order to make the show more entertaining? Let me know in the comments. As usual, please make sure you subscribe to my channel if you liked this video, and if you could please like, comment or share this video, it would really help to boost the algorithm and promote my video to more people. It's a quick and easy way to show support for my channel, and I'd really appreciate it. Please make sure you also follow me on Instagram, where I post exclusive Did You Know fun facts, and I also post interactive quizzes and polls in my Instagram stories, where you can also interact with other Drag Race queens and look at their replies. So make sure you follow me at DragTServed on Instagram for some extra content that you won't see on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me again in future videos. Thank you, bye!